Welcome to Better Boss and Construction Tech Talk. Today we have a truly inspiring guest, Ryan Collett, president of Avondale Roofing. Ryan's journey from college dropout to industry leader is nothing short of extraordinary. Ryan has transformed Avondale Roofing from a small two-person operation into a thriving, dynamic team of 25. Known for creating a vibrant, family-like culture where young professionals thrive, Ryan's leadership is as innovative as it is effective. In this episode, we'll explore Ryan's unique leadership style, his relentless drive for growth, and the invaluable lessons he's learned along the way.
Ryan, my man, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a busy guy, growing business, more crews, more locations. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you? I appreciate the invite. Appreciate being here.
Hey, I'm living the dream, and now I get to speak to another young, thriving, modern leader in the space. So I'm ready to learn a thing or two and share your story and how others can use your experiences and strategies to hopefully achieve the same results.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give some insights.
Sure. Absolutely, man. All right. We talked a little bit on the phone. We chatted up. I got to learn your story a little bit, at least the cliff notes, if you will. And we were talking about what made you successful. And the first thing you said is, I'm obsessed with it. And I love that reply, especially somebody who themselves can get obsessed with something and is all in. What do you mean by that? And why do you think that has helped propel you to get to where you are today? What aspects are you really obsessed with? And how has that helped you?
So overall, it's just the obsession, right, of growing it, right? Growing the team is always been my main focus. Everything else follows, right? The day-to-day growth as far as seeing the team grow, the management team grow, that's been super fun. To go back even just 3 years, it was 2-3 of us operating this entire thing. Now we're up to 27, right?
Isn't that the American dream, though? Isn't that like
yeah,
they're grinding? How cool is that?
Right? It's just super fun to see. It's super fun to see that there is a team, that there is a management team, that we're moving and shaking, moving to different location, growing, all that kind of stuff. That's the part that I just continue to become obsessed with. Is obviously like revenue numbers, all that kind of stuff is a part of it, but getting different people in here, getting different personalities, and trying to just build a fun culture. That's, like you said, it's the American dream. It's a lot of fun to see. So that's what keeps me going every day.
I had a chance to speak to Cassie, right? And she's great. She seems just like a winner, A player for sure.
Yep.
And she mentioned the culture, right? You could tell that she was all about the culture and the fun work atmosphere. She mentioned things like Nerf gun fights and throwing stress balls at each other. And you saying after meetings, hey, go keep kicking ass. That sounds pretty fun. It doesn't sound like your standard roofing company. Do you think that that's been an advantage for you to attract talent? And how do you know if someone's a good fit for your company?
Fair. Yeah, I think as far as like attracting talent, yes and no. I think sometimes it's hard. I think everybody struggles with that, right? Like finding the right people right now, finding people that want to join the team. That I think every industry is struggling in that part of the world, the economy, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely think if people can see it, and if they can see it early on, obviously it's a fun culture to be a part of. I definitely think it helps with retention. Like once you get people in the door and they can see that it's not like super corporate-y and all that kind of stuff, like that's a big value right there. What's the second part of the question?
What was I talking about? Oh, good fit. And then I talked about, yeah.
I think as far as like people fitting into the culture, again, it's something that's hard to see early on, but throughout somebody's first 6 months, year, you can really see, hey, are they typically looking at a glass half full kind of thing or glass half empty? I think we always try to be optimistic, and again, we try to have fun, and you got to do your job, you got to succeed at it. But at the same time, like if you're doing good and you're doing your work, why shouldn't you have fun with it? We all spend
100%.
and we all spend almost more time together than we do with our families. That's just the way that the world works right now. You're spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week together. Might as well try and have some fun with it.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned, it's funny, you mentioned positive mindset and attitude. And you didn't
Right.
mention any kind of like specific skill sets, business skill sets, but you actually focus more on their mindset, which is cool because I was talking to my buddy who owns a contracting company, and he was talking about different almost tiers of his employees. And the ones that he wasn't very fond of were the ones who were not solution oriented. And the
Right.
ones who were always trying to think of how they could solve the problem were like his favorites. And he's like, I would do
Right.
anything for more of them.
Right. No, and it's true. I think obviously there's an aspect of it that there's things depending on the role and everything like that you can't always train. There is certain skills that you're looking for and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's a huge value to people who are like willing to problem solve and people who are creative and all that kind of stuff. Like there is things that are trainable and there's things that aren't. And a lot of that stuff, problem solving and everything like that, you either have those characteristics or you don't.
And it just makes such a big impact, right? Because things are going to come up all the time. Every day there's going to be challenges. There's going to be a problem that you have to figure out, fix, and move on. And there's certain people on your team when you're a business owner that you know that if you give them a problem, right, you don't have to completely break it down or give them full direction. But what they're going to do is they're going to use their abilities to solve problems, right, and think about solutions, and they're going to fix it. And you're not even know, you might not even know about it, right? But they just go out and they just make it happen.
Right.
That's how you win. If you have people that can do that, oh my God, you're gonna have a lot of success. And then you talk about retention too. I mean, if you can retain those people, even better.
I think that the other aspect of that too is it gives you your time back. So like when you have core people that can make those decisions and problem solve, like it just gives you so much more time back to focus on other things. So I 100% agree with you that that's a huge value to have in any type of management team. And luckily we have a really good core team of people like that.
So I'm glad that you mentioned the time aspect of it too, because this is what will happen. For most people, let's say you hire a new employee, right? There's going to be, you have to understand there's expectation that up front for X amount of time, you're going to have to invest that into them, right? But once that's over with, those A players will be the ones that are now saving you time. And then the lower tier are going to be the ones that are still coming to you for questions on every single aspect. And now you spent the time or the money to get your time back, and now you're just spending the money, but you're not getting your time back.
No, it's super valuable. And like, again, building that team so that you can get that time back. And I think that's another huge thing as far as just like our success and the growth over the years is putting the right people in place and giving the right people like an opportunity too. A lot of our team came from other positions or other companies and grew within. So giving the people opportunity to grow and get into those roles and really prove themselves, that's huge. And then once they can get there, like you said, if they're the right fit for it, it really gains you that time back to focus on other things. And then obviously that's how you can continue that obsession and continue just growing it in different ways because you can focus on different parts of the business.
Yeah, I love this conversation. We talked about these A players, right? And now these A players, these solution-oriented go-getters, which are hard to find. And so when you find them, you have to understand that they want opportunities, right? They want opportunities to grow their career, right? Try new challenges, make more money, right? So it's key to allow them to do that, right? And, when I was talking to Cassie, she was talking to me about how she's in a new role now, right? And I love seeing that stuff, right? So how do you guys make that like a priority? Because I think that's so big and people don't put enough energy and planning into it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like, my initial response that like comes up right away is we really haven't had to try to, which has been kind of nice because the growth has been there to support continuing to add. So put people in place into different roles. So over the past 3 years, 3.5 years, roughly, that's when I purchased the business, and the growth has always been there year by year to continue either adding or moving people into different roles. So it hasn't been that much effort, so to speak, of putting people into where they want to fit. And then obviously we've had really good core people that have already been maybe in a different position. Like Cassie was in inside sales before, and she showed an interest in marketing. So I was like, hey, why don't you give a shot at this? She was great at her other role. She'd be great at this. So I think always seeing people's strengths and then having those opportunities to move them into, it hasn't been that much effort, which has been really nice.
It has been effort though, right? Because you put the effort into the growth, right? So you had the fundamentals in place and the planning in place to strategically grow. And then with that growth created opportunities, and then you were able to go in there, analyze, hey, this strength could go well here, and create that opportunity, right? Give you some props on that. That's awesome, but it's also a good way to look at it. Now, I wanted to ask you too, but with your team being a little bit younger, right? There's a lot of people in their 30s and 40s. Do you think that you guys run your business and your client experience and whatnot a little bit different than some more of the traditional type? Or how has that impacted the business?
Yes and no. I think we probably look at it with a different view as far as we're still in such a young stage of a business. I mean, the business has been around for 36, 37 years as far as my ownership, and then just the team, like we're all newer to it. So I think we look at it through a different lens as far as, hey, what's the future going to hold? How long are, we all going to be here? All that kind of stuff. And pretty much everybody looks at it as, and it's hard to say, but everybody, as far as like the core staff, I really feel like they look at it as like that 10, 20, 30-year vision, right? So in that regard, it definitely makes you look at it through a different lens of like how you treat your customers and the decisions you make, and hey, where are we going to be a year from now? Where are we going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It's crazy to just see a year ago to today, right? And that's not even just crazy for me. It's crazy for for my team too. So, that's where it's, I think a lot of different decisions are made where you run into your like super corporate roofing companies or your roofing companies that have been in business for 100 years and still under the same family ownership or something like that. They're still stuck in their ways, and some of them even get more like either take it or leave it an attitude to customers. In those regards, we definitely act differently than some of the other ones out there.
Yeah. Like you're saying, if they've been around forever, right? It's, hey, we've always done it this way. And they can rely on the brand and the trust and credibility that they have built throughout the years. But unfortunately, that you can only do that for so long. Because when a company like you is thinking, hey, how do we get from where we are now to where we want to be in this 5, 10, 15-year plan, you're going to be very strategic with the moves, how you treat customers, how you operate your business, how you adapt and evolve to make sure that you hit that goal. Someone who has been there for a long time and been doing it the same way forever, they're thinking a little bit different. Hey, this is how I've always done it. I don't need to change. I don't need to grow. You know what I mean? But the thing is, if you're not growing, you're dying. Right. So even if you've been in business forever, I'm not necessarily saying you have to grow like crazy with revenue, but maybe you increase your profits, you improve this, blah, blah, blah. Right. You have to keep growing. Otherwise, it is not survivable. Right. And you guys are out there young and feisty. It's hard to keep up.
A lot of the older generation that currently is still in the roofing industry, that it's like, hey, I've done it this way forever. This is roughly my revenue for the past 10, 20 years. And they're happy with that, right? They're happy with the processes that they've put in place and not necessarily changing that much. So either they're looking at their next person to take it over, whether that's family or a current employee or something like that, or they're just kind of looking at their way out. So I think that's also like an interesting place to be at for us right now, is just because you have a lot of companies that are owned right now by 50, 60, mid 60, late 60-year-olds, and they're on the way out. They're trying to figure out like, hey, how do I dissolve all this? How do I pass it on to somebody else? I'm going to retire, all that kind of stuff. So you have a lot of that going on right now in any type of service industry. And so it's definitely interesting just seeing how they run the business and the sales aspect of it compared to like how maybe we would, right?
The closest thing I can compare it to is for me, right? So I'm on the software technology side of things, right? So let's say I learned how to code and develop different tools when computers were first invented. And I never took the time every year or every few years to learn all the new systems, coding tools, what scripts they're using, what languages they're using. Didn't spend any of that, right? And then you got somebody else who's offering the same services, right? Who's maybe a few years out of school and is just dialed into the latest, most modern approaches. Who would you rather have? But I got credibility. I've been doing this forever.
Right. No, and that's kind of it. Like, definitely as far as how they sell or recommendations, like at the end of the day, there's not like that much like innovation, I would say, in roofing. There is and there isn't. There is in ways of tools and equipment and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, a roof is a roof, right? There's only so 100%. Many variations of it. It's not like the tech industry where it's like ever changing. The difference is, it's like, how do they even use CRMs? Like, how's their sales presentation? Like, how are their sales guys presenting problem solving and all that kind of stuff? So those are the things that I really see that are different from us to somebody else compared to some crazy innovation, because it's just not the industry, right? Like, our industry just isn't very innovative, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
But the thing is, I almost think it's a bigger impact then, right? Because there's more opportunity there, if not everybody's doing it. Because I saw some stat, it was like 70% of like technology and software implementation in the construction space fail, right? And so it's one of the most out of date spaces for such a big industry with so much opportunity, right? And so when everybody's way behind and you're able to show up and just be like somewhat fundamentally sound with organization, communication, all that customer experience aspects, it like blows the customer away. And that's how you stand out.
Right. Yeah. It's, you still have right now so much of it that it's just like, hey, and I don't know, I'm not a huge believer in it, but it's, you still have so many companies that it's, hey, I'll stop by your property, or maybe I won't even stop by. I'll just do like a quick satellite view or something like that. And then here's just an email, right? Like, here's your number, take it or leave it. And it's just, God, it's so lazy of a sales process, right? Like, I hate it. It's not meeting the customer, not talking to them, not trying to figure out like, hey, what are you actually looking for? Do you need a new roof? Do you just need a service repair? And then meeting somebody to problem solve, like, hey, this is the budget that, and the recommendation that we came up with, but what were you thinking? And really like connecting with people. It's a people business, in my opinion, right? It's connecting, it's seeing people, it's talking to people, it's working through solutions, especially bigger corporate companies. It's coming up with solutions that work for them, for their CapEx and their budgets and all that kind of stuff. If you're just lazy with it and it's just, here's a number, it's a matter of a numbers game at that point. If you throw enough out there, eventually something will stick, but it's just not the game that I enjoy playing, right? Like, I'd rather make those connections, problem solve with people. And I think that's a lot of what sets us apart from other roofing companies too.
So how do you handle that then? How do you take that? So if you're going into a new commercial property owner, meeting with a new owner or facility manager, whoever you guys prefer to communicate with, what does that look like in that first meeting, and how do you handle that sales approach?
Yeah, that first one is really, right, it's like the foot in the door. So it's putting a face to the name for us, right? So like, they know who we are. It's not just somebody who called them or so on and so forth. It's, hey, this is your rep. What's your problem? Let's figure out what's been going on. Let's figure out where. Let's figure out why. So it's more of like at that point, just getting all the right data and then putting a face to the name and connecting with people is that first step. And then figuring out, okay, so now that we have the problem, we figured out what the problem is, what's the solution for it, right? What can the business handle? There's, in my opinion, never enough questions that you can ask in that initial meeting, right? About gathering data, right? Because if you have all the data of, okay, here's the customer's issue, maybe they were using this roofer in the past, why aren't you meeting with them now? Why are you meeting with me? Did they do something that you didn't like? Are they just stuck in their ways? What is it? Do you want a permanent fix? Do you want a temporary fix? So a lot of that is just like a discovery, I guess, the best way to put it is connecting with people and then just figuring out everything that every hurdle that might come up.
Mm-hmm. You're coming in as a consultant, as an advisor, as a high-level strategic partner, basically.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. It's just working together to try and figure out, like, hey, what issues have you had, and what kind of solution are you looking for?
And then when you're looking at obviously residential versus commercial, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that's one of the big things. Like, I'll leave names out of it, but I was really proud of a customer that I gained that they own a bunch of stuff all over the US, and they used to use a huge corporate roofing company, like largest roofing company in the United States. You can look it up. It's a huge company. It is literally like the largest one in the United States. And the reason that why we are their main roofing contractor now is I took the time and my team took the time to actually problem solve what was going on in all their different facilities. It wasn't just, hey, here's what we think, take it or leave it. And that's what really swayed them over to switch to go with us.
I love that story, man. And this is what I'm all about too. For the viewers, listeners out there, when we're talking construction tech talk, it's not about just technology, right? It's about the modern way to operate trades and construction business, right? So this could be people, processes, client experience, whatever it might be, right? And it's just stepping up your game and thinking differently than your competition in those areas. So I love that. And so when you're looking at residential versus commercial, then how are you looking at those relationships? Like when you're looking at the commercial side, are you looking at it almost like a portfolio that you're building out of clients and whatnot that's going to be a long-term play, or how are you managing those relationships?
So the commercial stuff is, like you said, it's more of a long-term play. A lot of the time it's like that initial foot in the door to meet with them. Then usually it's first do service work for them. So if it's a huge factory, if it's a big enough place, no matter the age of the roof, they're going to have service needs. So they're going to have a leak here every once in a while, or they're going to have like drains that clog, or you name it. I know this is sometimes boring stuff for people that don't understand the industry, but these are the real things that it's like, they'll have little service things. And that's usually the first way in is like, okay, we'll start doing some service stuff for people, cleaning out drains, doing some patches here and there. So they start to get to know us and how we work. And then over time that turns into it's okay, well, I got this building here that needs a roof. I've got this one over here that needs a roof next year, you name it. And so it's really building that relationship and then nurturing that over time. Your smaller commercial buildings, it might be like they just own one and that's it, and you put a roof on it and you're done. But I would say that's less common than building that relationship of usually if they own a factory, they own multiple, or if they own a commercial building, they're an investor and they own multiple. So it's trying to always keep that relationship going so that obviously you can nurture that relationship and keep continuing getting business years, so on and so forth.
Yeah, 100%. One thing too that I thought was interesting that you guys do, and so for you guys, it must just seem more common. It's funny because I've been in the roofing space for 6-7 years now, and I would say I don't see a high percentage of people doing this, is you guys have also like inside sales lead development, like people who are responsible for prospecting from in the office or home or wherever it might be. Can you tell me about how you guys do that. Do you guys do it where someone like generates the lead, somebody else takes the meeting then? Is it like,
Yep.
what's the process there? And I love that you guys are doing it because I think you actually said you had experience doing that when you're getting going too. But tell me a little bit about that.
Yep. Sorry for all the viewers. I'm trying to get power to my laptop soon because it doesn't die.
Oh, you got to put that charger on, man.
Yeah, exactly. I will after this, but
just make sure you get that charger in there. Can't lose you.
I know. So that's actually what my initial start into the industry, like ever, was. I was a roofer, right? So I'm a college dropout, which I think you said you are too, maybe. I don't.
I am not. Somehow I made it, but I'll be honest, I didn't listen to any class. I went to every single class, but I never listened.
Okay, fair. You did better than me. You at least graduated. But so like I didn't have a degree. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at a young age. I just needed and I got married at 22. I was like, okay, I need to make some money. So I was a roofer for a year. And then I was like, okay, I'm a people person. I think I could sell stuff, right? So for that same company, I was like, hey, give me a shot at sales.
Real quick, too, I want to make sure everybody understands that, too, because you don't hear that story very often. He was actually up there, right? You were a service tech, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So because you don't hear that a lot, right? So that's cool. So this guy was actually out there doing the work.
Fair. Yeah, see, I'm going to move so I can get power, everybody. But
switch it up.
Yeah, I was the one that was doing just like service calls, right? So it was nothing crazy exciting, but it was fun at the time. I enjoyed it at that age. It was seeing different stuff every day, right? And that was like the start of the industry. But then, I wanted to get into sales. Did a shot at inside sales. That company had like a similar structure that I worked for. Did that for, I don't know, 3-6 months, something like that. And that really is just lead gen. And then got into outside sales. So back to how
you'd be prospecting, right? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Yeah. As far as the inside sales, it was, and again, the same way that we structure it is you usually have a list already like in your system. So like in our CRM, we have lists and different territories and stuff like that. And then, you're just prospecting, right? The whole goal is to get your outside salesperson an appointment. So get a foot in the door, right? Whether that's just dropping off information or whether that's doing like a free roof inspection, that is your goal. So it's the same way like that we've structured it over the years, done a little bit differently, but it's still essentially we have, for every outside sales rep, we have inside sales reps. So their whole, it's like a teamwork is the best way to describe it. The goal is always to have outside sales reps in front of people, meeting with people, getting on roofs, getting cards in front of people, that kind of stuff. That's always the goal.
I like that a lot because, like I said, I don't see that very often. So do you guys door knock or no?
Not really, like not the traditional aspect of it. Outside sales reps will, if you're in a business park, we canvas. So I think everybody calls it clover leafing. I think that's what the like analogy is, where it's like, hey, if you're at this business, stop by the 10 surrounding businesses and at least just drop off. So we do that, but it's not, we're not going through residential neighborhoods and door knocking like the traditional aspect.
I just think that this model that you're doing is more strategic and effective because, first off, when you get your list, you're thinking about your ideal client and you're being very segmented, whether it's location, type building, whatever it might be, right? And then once you have those lists built out, right, you can be very focused in your approach. And what's cool is you hear all the time that marketing and sales hate each other and they're not connected and there's friction between the two. But when you do this kind of model, it's basically creating a team, right, where it's a unified effort to get to that end goal. And it makes it a little bit more of a fun of a process, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I giggled when you said that because it's, you do hear that a lot. And I think the goal always needs to be is that like really marketing should be supporting sales, in my opinion. Like it should be a good teamwork, a good marriage, so to speak, whatever you want to call it. that there should be a really good support system there, because one, marketing is helping get the name out there, helping it be a little bit easier for either leads to come in, or if it's like inside sales or outside sales, calling a place or stopping into a place, it's a lot easier when it's like, oh yeah, I've seen your billboard or something. The name sounds familiar, right? Like it's so much easier. It's like the Coca-Cola model, right? Where it's so much easier to be like, oh, maybe I heard you guys on the radio or something. It's easier to have that like warm invite if there's that support there from marketing. And then obviously all of the stuff like your business cards, your presentation, your pamphlets, all that stuff is coming from marketing. So it should be doing nothing but supporting sales in gaining those leads. So yeah, it's like between marketing, inside sales, and outside sales, like it should just be a really great group of a partnership right there.
So because when you're talking about marketing and supporting sales, this is some things that I think of it is, like you said, brand awareness. It mentioned, oh, I saw your billboard, right? When I was focused specifically on the roofing space and I had that podcast for 3 years, sometimes you saw impact, sometimes you didn't, but all of a sudden I'd go to a roofing conference and someone would come up to me like, hey, what's going on? I've been listening in the truck for the last year, right? Now, when that prospect goes into a sales atmosphere with me, do they trust me? Do they think that I'm going to make sure I have their best interest in place? Of course. So it changes it almost warms up the lead, right? Where it breaks down some of those obstacles of trust and all those kind of things, and then play the part, right? So if you want to be able to charge a certain amount because you're a high quality contractor and you do the best work, but in order to do so, you need to get paid for that, and you want to be a premium contractor, make sure that marketing makes you look like a premium contractor. And then of course the last one is leads, right? And there should be leads coming in too.
And again, it's the amount of proposals that I still see in this day and age that are like almost like a scratch piece of paper, where it's just like hey, here's my scope of work and here's my price. And I'm like, this is the best you can do in 2024? Come on. Can you try a little bit harder, you know?
But doesn't that get you excited though? For you think about it, if that's the proposal you're going against.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's unfortunately, like obviously people still go with some of those customers and it is what it is, but it's okay. Well, that's not our ideal customer. There's a reason why we put time into the brand and into the vision and into the whole mission of the company. So it's crazy how you still see that stuff. And yeah, it definitely is exciting because it sets you apart. And it's just like, I don't know, to me, like back to your original question, it's, I don't know, that doesn't sound fun to just have like a really boring, no brand, like here's just like a name and maybe a scratch piece of paper and I throw some stuff together. It just doesn't sound fun. It doesn't sound like a business. You know?
For me, it's I'm more of a long-term thinker. So whenever I start a business, I'm always thinking about, okay, long-term, what's going to serve me best? It might be painful in the beginning. It might not pay off right away, but it's really all about building that brand out. So whether it's your website, your content, your sales presentations, your client experience, onboarding, whatever it is, right? I just want to be the best at that, right? I want every single client to love working with us, tell people about it, and feel like they're part of a community, right? Because that's how it pays back, right? So it's fundamentals, right? We try to complicate it, and because business is complicated, right? But it's pretty simple, right? It's just like these fundamentals, and just making sure you don't get in your own way,
right?
And you're going to be successful,
right? No, it's an interesting topic, and it's fun that we get on it because it's. I joke around about it a lot that it's like, hey, if you just pick up your phone and you actually like care about people, like you can succeed in this business. Like just pick up your phone, have a presence, like care about people. And it's you can succeed in whether it's roofing or HVAC or electrical, like any. Again, I'm coming from like service side, and that's just what I see, that it's like so many service-based companies are great at their trade, right? Like they're a great HVAC guy or a great electrician, and then they start a company and they just don't look at the aspect of, a brand and a management team and values and all that kind of stuff, that it's just like they're not great at the business aspect of it, but they're great at the trade. And that's definitely the majority of anything in the trades industries.
Yep.
It's rarer to have
all the trades.
Yeah, it's rarer to have, or more rare to have somebody who's just a really good business owner and that also has like a great team. You don't see as much of that. I know a few for sure, but it's usually the opposite. With like they were just great at their trade, and then they were like, "Oh, I can do this."
And you know what's funny is what I noticed now is that as I opened up my market and started working with different trades, is like you were saying, construction can be out of date, right? But you'll notice that roofing, HVAC, electrical, they all have different little areas that they're showing some kind of innovation. So it's if I owned a company in the trades, I'd almost talking to other roofers, for example, or might be is great. Go talk to an HVAC guy. Go pick the brain of someone who has a plumbing company, whatever it might be, and just see what you can pick up on it, and how you can implement something unique in the space and continue to just blow your customers away, and treat them away and give them experience that they're just not used to.
No, it's interesting. It's a great point, and I run into still a plumbing company that like I used at a place, and it was like, oh, this is a really cool like customer service app that they use. Like it was like text message and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I was like, we should look into this. So it's fun running into some other people that are doing these things that just are trying to make the customer experience that much better, especially in the current day that we're like the tech industry that we're in, and just the amount of options that we have at our fingertips, right?
Yeah. And that kind of brings me to my next question that I got to ask you about, because I talked to Cassie about it, and it seems like you guys are pretty open-minded, and you guys have tried a variety of different technologies, and you're pretty innovative in your approaches with that kind of stuff. What's your opinion on different softwares and like the technology stack that you put together?
Yeah, for us, we use like our main hub of all of our information is our CRM, right? Specific one that just houses everything, anything from like lead coming in to like when a project is done. And that's really what like day to day runs the business, right? It's
real quick,
yep.
Do you really like that CRM? Do you want to give them a shout out?
Yeah, we use JobNibus and I love it. It's a great software. It's the one that like early on, year one, we got hooked up with, and it was just a perfect timing. And then it's just grown with us. They're in a growth stage as well. Like they're a younger company. They've been innovative every year. They're always changing. They're always trying to implement new things, buying up other companies so that they can implement new things into their software. So it's been great. I've obviously been approached a million times to switch over, and I'm just like, I've never wanted to. It's always done everything that I wanted it to. And if it hasn't, they're always open to, hey, our development team will look into this. And usually at some point in time, it does end up coming true. Yeah, it's been a great software, and it gets better.
So I'm glad that you gave them a shout out. So when you're looking for a CRM tool, you're looking for somebody that you can get married with, basically.
Right.
Because everybody knows that changing your CRM and all that stuff is a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking for somebody who has a future. So let's say I'm looking for a wife or a husband or whatever it was. I'm like, all right, hey, they're great now, but do they have a future? Are they goal orientated, right? That's literally what you're looking for with these different softwares, because they're going to have to continue to evolve. They just got 53 million in what is it, funding, investments, right? So obviously they have a lot of funds to play with to put a jetpack on this thing and continue to innovate it. Also, they were a sponsor when we had the Start Build Grow show with the Roofing Academy for a long time, and by the time I saw them, they were just growing. They just got Sumo Quote, so shout out to them on that. But yeah, so you love that. So that's good. Then that's the hub, right? So that's going to be the hub of everything. Has there been any other tools or anything that you've been, this has been super helpful or unique or anything like that?
There's other stuff that obviously like we use every day, right? Our entire system like runs off of like Microsoft 365 and like all that kind of stuff. That's like typical business stuff, right? I wouldn't say there's any other program that I run into on a day-to-day basis that it's like, oh, I absolutely love this, right?
Blown away.
Yeah. It's your typical, no matter if it's this or something else, I would be using it, right? But in this specific application, JobNova's CRM for service-based companies has just been great. There's website stuff and all that kind of stuff, but again, I wouldn't say there's anything that blows my mind on a day-to-day basis. But maybe there's other stuff out there that should, right?
I'll say this, with my space, there wasn't a whole ton of tools that I saw that were coming out that I was super blown away with. Of course, everybody loves company cam and whatnot, but
right.
It's still a simplistic tool. But there's not a whole lot. And I think this goes back to me getting some experience work with some of the trades. If people out there are looking, let's say you're roofing, for some other innovative tools, try to look it up. Construction specific tools, construction management tools, all this kind of stuff like that. They have some unique stuff that you can tie in some of your operations and whatnot, but there really isn't anything super, super wild out there quite yet. But JobNova is definitely a great tool. And I think a takeaway from this, though, is going to be, hey, if you want to grow and you want to have something streamlined, a CRM is going to be your hub, right? Yep. And that's going to be the source of everything that you can start to build out those processes to scale everything out.
Yeah, it still amazes me, like the amount of companies that operate without a CRM, and I'm like, how? Like, how do you? I really don't understand it.
Dude, it's funny because so I started out in software sales when I first got into like the tech side, and so 40% of our business was contractors, and so I'd always go look at their accounts after we closed them, and dude, they'd have no results. It would never even be set up, right? And then I got into the lead generation side. And we're generating these commercial roofing leads. And then you start to realize it really wasn't the lead getting generated, but it was everything that happened from that bid or estimate, right, all the way to billing and everything from there that was the mess and wasn't organized. Right. And so that's why I went into this, because as companies are evolving, if you don't set these tools up the right way, what it does is it creates additional friction for whenever you try to implement anything new, right? And when it's not fully set up right and people aren't trained on it, some people are using it, some people aren't. So really now you're just adding an additional expense, and it didn't make really an impact on the company. Right.
Yeah, I mean, also too, it just makes like that process that much harder. It doesn't make it fluid, right?
And that's what you're trying to do with the CRM, right? You're trying to make everybody's job easier, right? And create additional organization and visibility into the business. So make sure you guys have a CRM and set up right.
Right. Well, I think like those two things are huge, like organization and visualization, right? That is like the main any CRMs, right? It's whatever department you're in, you can see exactly what's going on, and you can have some organization to it to actually know, hey, what stages, where are things at, what needs to be done. That's huge, especially as you continue to grow. If you don't have that, I just feel like it's a ticking time bomb at some point in time where it's going to explode.
100%. And the way I look at it is when you start a business, so let's say you start a roofing company, right? In the beginning, it's the Wild West. No processes, there's no systems. You're really not sure how this thing's going to go. You're like a little baby deer and you can't really walk yet, right? And anything goes. You're just trying to close deals and make it happen, right? Going over the top for the customers, whatever it might be. But all of a sudden you start to grow. You have more customers. You have more employees, right? You have all this stuff, right? At some point, you have to start to systemize the madness and the chaos. And the best way to do it now is through these different tools. And once you have those in place, we were talking about the visibility, right? Now you can see, all right, as a business owner, you have to make good decisions. Now I can see all the data about every aspect of the business to make like impactful, informed decisions rather than just doing it on assumptions. And same thing with holding people accountable, setting goals, all the stuff like this. Let's say Sally hasn't been selling anything, right?
Right.
And you have Sally in there, and you start yelling at Sally, but you have nothing. You're just going off assumptions, right?
Right.
But if you have data, you can go into the system, pull the report, and review the report with Sally.
Right.
And now you're not just being an a-hole, but really all you're doing is just talking about this and saying, hey, what are we going to do about it? How can we fix it? What areas can we improve? Blah, blah, blah.
Right. Well, I mean, on the same aspect too, it's like, it gives you the ability to be like, hey, where are the areas where we went wrong? What are the things that you're not doing? What are the things that you need to implement? How can we get you to that next stage? So it's, again, back to your point of Wild West, like if you're just doing it off the cuff, right? Like, how are you ever going to have any data to go off of? Hey, like, where did things go wrong? Where did things go wrong? Like, you name it. You can't see it on either side. There's just no, how do you ever catch a trend?
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes, I see contractors that offer a big menu of services. And I think that's always hard. And I think if they had this data, they would automatically eliminate like half of them. So from my time in business as a business owner, I've realized every time that I cut out product offerings, service offerings, and I make it smaller, right? Where I can just streamline 1, 2, 3 things. Customers are happier. My business is doing better, right? And I'm more profitable.
No, and it's really interesting that you say that, mainly just because I am not a believer at all in having like a huge menu. Like, I think it overcomplicates everything. Yeah. If you take it back to just food, if you walk into a restaurant,
I was just at a Mexican restaurant, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like you walk in.
Stresses me out, bro. I want 5 things.
Yes, exactly. You have this massive menu, and it's like, dude, I have no idea what to order. And it's the same thing in roofing.
I'm tired. It's Friday, and I want like a margarita and a burrito, man. And now I got 17 pages to look through, and I have to make another decision. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. No, 100%. It's like, give me the 10, like 1 through 10. Here's your options, and that's it. That's all I need. And I think it's the same way. I just don't.
Exactly.
I'm not a believer in. I also think, especially in this industry, unless you're dealing with like a GC or something like that, if you're dealing directly with a business owner or a homeowner, right? Like, they'll do their research, but they don't know roofing. This isn't their job. If you're like, hey, there's this system and there's this system and then there's this system, it just overcomplicates everything. Like, everybody starts spinning their wheels. It's the same thing with, I'll run into people that'll get 6, 7 different quotes. And I'm like, how do you ever decide, right? Like, how do you ever decide at that point? Because you're going to get so many different opinions. You're going to get so many conflicting things. It's like, how are you ever going to make a decision? I feel the same way when it's like a company presents themselves that way, where it's like, hey, here's A, B, C, D, E, F. Here's all these different options. How are you ever going to have a customer be able to make a decision based off of that?
I have a fortune cookie, and I kept it. I still have it here. I'd say it's like on my desk. It was something along the lines of, genius is making the complicated simple. And nice. It's so true. It's so true when you think about this customer experience. They don't know anything that you know. And you want to simplify this process as much as possible for them. Make it frictionless. And even with this new company, with Better Boss, what we do is so much more complicated than what I was doing with the last company. And it's been more difficult to really simplify it for the customer. We're talking about our messaging and stuff like that. But I've been continuing to put a lot of work on it because I know how important it is, right? Because if I can simplify it for the customer, because that's what I want to do for the client, is I want to simplify this experience at every aspect, right? And so when you can do that, it's just so big for, like, we're talking about the customer experience and probably sales, right? Sales probably increase too.
I think, again, it's like, learn what you're really good at and learn what you believe in and your team believes in and that you believe is a good solution, and stick with that. We're pretty much down to, here's our 3 roofing systems that we're really good at, and this is what we sell every day, right? I don't want to be really good at all 10 of them. Like, it's not who we are. We like to stay in our lane and become really good at, these are our few things that we can stand behind the product, we believe in it, and then we're really good at installing it. And that's what we push forward every day. So it's like, just figure out what that is that you can believe in and be good at, and stick with it, instead of giving all these different options and everything like that. Like, I'll turn away stuff where people are like, oh, I really want this system. And I'm like, I don't believe in that system. Here's my reasons why. I don't think it's good. I don't think their warranty's good. I don't think the system's good, the application, you name it. And I'll try to sell somebody out of it. But ultimately, if you can't, then I'm like, I'm not your guy. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's so huge. And I love that you guys have that approach with it, because I think the key is to make your business as boring as possible. Mundane, if you will, because it's the only way to be the best at what you do is you have to be so niche and so focused at what you do, right? Where you can just repeat, because then all you're doing is you're improving that process over and over again, rather than having all these different areas that you're kind of scattered in. And in the beginning, if you're new, you're just trying to fund the business, right? So either these one-off deals where you go out of your comfort zone or whatever it is to take it, do it. By all means, all power to you. Go make it happen. As you scale, those are the strategic moves that you have to make sure that profitability is still at a point where you can scale. And but hey, man, our conversation has been epic, man, and you've been dropping nuggets. This went all kinds of directions that I think we got some gold. But unfortunately, time's coming to close. But I do want to ask you one last question, though. And I was going to ask you at the beginning, but I think I'm glad I saved it for the end. Is you were a college dropout.
Yeah.
Right? I think you went to Florida and was selling timeshares for Marriott. You started a couple of CBD companies, right? Somewhere in between there, you were a roof tech, you were roof sales, but then you came right back to the homeland of roofing, right? Where everybody just comes back. You just, once you're in, you just can't get out. They don't let you leave. How did those early struggles and not even struggle, but just the journey, right, that you went on, shape your approach in business and in life?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. Yeah, I went roofing sales, timeshare, CBD businesses, back to roofing, and then ownership, right? That's like the quick flow. So I definitely learned a lot throughout all those different things and use all of that on a day-to-day basis. Like my time in roofing, I learned a lot of like how the system actually works and how to install things. And that helps me figure out how to sell stuff. And I can also connect and problem solve better for people because I've done it. Timeshare is a totally different business where it's you're selling to people that hate you, right? Like they have this preconceived notion of what timeshare is. They are bribed to be there. They're paid to sit in front of you, right? And you have
is that when you learn the ability to take rejection then basically and just like grit or what?
Yeah, definitely the grit. And then like I would say if anybody, and please whoever's listening to this, take this to heart. If anybody ever wanted to get into sales, like just go sell timeshare for 2 years. Like just go, like that is the crash course in how to become a really good salesperson. Like there's just no industry.
Rough.
There's just no industry like it. Right? You have literally an hour and a half to sell people, a husband and wife, or any spouse.
And they hate you.
And you have an hour and a half to sell them, and they hate you. They have all this data that it's crap and everything.
Before you speak, they hate you.
Yeah, and you'll never see them again after. There's like a 1% chance of a sale after the fact. It just doesn't happen. It's very much a in the moment sale, and that's it. So it's all about making people connect with you in the first 15 minutes and then setting the right expectations. It's all about like emotion and analytics and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a whirlwind of an hour and a half to 2 hours. So all of that gives me so much selling skills. I sold before that, but nothing that intense. How to connect with people and all that. Like I use that every day. It grew me so much that 2 years there. I still would. It's fun. Once you get into the industry, it's actually really fun. It's probably some of the.
How would you make them like you? How would they? How would you turn their perception about you?
Yeah, no, it's a super valid question. the like ongoing kind of talk is always in that first 10 to 15 minutes, if you can get them to smile or laugh, that's what you're looking to do, right? Because again, they're sitting in front of you. You're taking them into your office to go through this sales presentation that they don't want to go through. And so that first 10 to 15 minutes, you're just trying to get them to smile or laugh so that you become a human, right? So that it's like, hey, as a person, here's a, like, usually you have like pictures of your kids on your desk and stuff like that, or your wife or husband, whatever. Because you gotta, again, you gotta connect with these people. You gotta make it like, hey, I'm just a normal person. I'm not the enemy. I know you don't want to be here, but here's who I am and stuff. So again, you're just looking for a smile or a laugh. That's the key thing.
If you can make me laugh, right, and you give me a sales pitch, I'm probably going to at least hear you out and see what you have to say.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you're just trying to at least bring the guard down so that it's not like that there's just a wall in front of them and they're not listening to anything. So yeah, like I said, I use all of those skills on a day-to-day basis. And then getting back into roofing, doing e-commerce before I got back into roofing, I learned a lot of things on SEO and like marketing and stuff like that. Not that I'm great at it, but I learned a lot more than I did before.
And so it's a great skill set, especially for local service business.
All of that stuff comes in handy on a day-to-day basis. And then I made some mistakes starting those businesses, like how I structured them, like business partner, all this kind of stuff. And definitely learned a lot in that of, okay, like when a business does become successful, like people fight over money and, like those kind of things.
Oh yeah.
So there's definitely a lot.
And it's like one of those things where you have to go through it to learn it. So if you have certain desires to get to a certain level, right? Every time you level up, you're like, oh, I made it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap. Now I have to learn these challenges. Right. Then you have a setback. And then, from those setbacks, you learn X, Y, Z. Then you get up more. It's just, that's the crazy game we decided to play. Right.
Yeah. And it's like a young business, and especially that industry, like that. I know we're coming close to time, but it's especially that industry. That was like 2015, 2016. It was like the regulation was crazy. Like it was still federally not legal, which I think still is the case. I don't know. I'm not in it as much anymore, but there's just so many different variations of everything. And it was like, how do I manage this and also still try to build a normal business? It was like credit card processing and all that kind of stuff that like no credit cards would touch it and everything. It was like, you name it, we ran into it. So there was like, that's your definition of problem solving right there. It's like, you learn so much that it's like, how do we just take people's payments? That was a daily struggle in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly, man. Isn't that wild though? And then you look at that stuff and it's just like your ability to learn just starts to accelerate, and your ability to solve problems gets better and better. And then there'll be stages even in your career as an entrepreneur, I think, where after all that practice, you'll have a quarter or 2 quarters a year, right, where you are just in a flow state. And every decision you make, you're not even thinking, but you already know the answer. And those moments make it all worth it.
No, 100%. But yeah, it's like, it's interesting. And you do stuff in those moments, in those young, like you said, in those young stages of a business where you're like, this is questionable. Is this like, you're just trying to keep the business flowing. You're just trying to get revenue. You're trying to, sustain itself. So yeah, it's a whirlwind in those first couple of years for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, just build off of those, right? So if you're early on or you're going through struggles, wherever it might be, just focus on continuous learning, right? Your ability to solve problems and keep developing those different skill sets, right? And before you know it, man, you'll be able to do certain things that you never thought you'd be able to do. I just talked to a guy who owns a concrete company here in Denver yesterday on a recording. And he was saying that, hey, he was having a hard time getting the right customers. He had to figure out how to generate the right customers online. He didn't know how to do any digital marketing. right? And now he's like SEO guru. He's got 20-something thousand subscribers on YouTube. He's got like a sales automation system, and now he's using that, and he's selling it to other contractors to use, right? And so think about that shift, right? You went all in and you learned it. Boom. Now you're good. Now you can take the next step. But hey, man, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Ryan. You definitely shared a lot of nuggets and great takeaways that viewers out there can use it in their business, whether it's about business, mindset, whatever it is. So thanks for taking the time.
It was a pleasure. I appreciate yours as well.
That wraps up our conversation with Ryan Collett, president of Avondale Roofing. Ryan's story is a testament to the power of perseverance, adaptability, and the importance of creating a positive work culture. Remember, success isn't just about the bottom line, it's about building strong teams, fostering a positive work environment, and continuously striving for improvement. Before we sign off, a quick word about Better Boss, our own venture into elevating the trades industry. Better Boss is your trusted fractional CTO partner, dedicated to empowering contractors with cutting-edge software solutions. Our mission is to guide you through successful digital transformations, unlocking unprecedented efficiency, profitability, and growth. For more information, visit our website at betterboss.io. Until next time, keep building the future. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel.